Honey, look at those beautiful clouds.
Those aren't clouds, Daddy. Those are chemtrails.
Chemtrails? What are chemtrails?
Chemical trails, Daddy, and they're very bad.
This is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineeringWatch.org radio for another week of assessment regarding the global insanity that we find ourselves swimming in, day out. We have Russ Tanner with us again, thankfully. Without Russ, wouldn't have a show. He's the tech behind making it all work. Russ continuing to do the good he's always done with trying to bring people together on this issue and keep the dialogue going. And Richard Sachs also actively a part of our fight and our cause. Richard brings much wisdom to the table, much perspectives, and it's all of us pulling together that matters. All of us, from the person on the street who's passing out flyers, and on this day, which is the Global March Day. And I heard from a lot of people around the globe that are really, really now motivated. They understand the gravity of the issue, and a lot of preparation in Northern California, where I'm at, with people passing out flyers. I know people that were at two of the local cities here at the big Walmart centers passing flyers out in the last few days, trying to raise awareness and help to get more people recruited to this cause. That's imperative we bring other people together. So I salute the person that organized these global marches, Troy Lessard, good friend, great guy. He's doing everything he can. And so, again, it's all of us pulling together. All of us matter in this equation. And that's important for everybody to remember. We each have a different part in this, though, and that's important to remember, too. It's we can't all do the same things. We all have a bit of a different role. And I'm sorry that I can't be out in the march this day with people locally here, but I have 3 radio shows today, and just only so many bases that can be covered. But if we each do our part, that's what matters. And this week, again, the weather manipulation in the continental U.S. right now is absolutely mind-numbing, and the degree to which they seem willing to destroy parts of the country and parts of the planet in order to carry out whatever it is they're carrying out, whatever their ultimate immediate and long-term agendas are. And we know a lot of those agendas, but we can't know all of it, of course. But the record drought continues in California. It's worse by the day. They continue to keep this high-pressure ridge locked into place, absolutely locked into place. And all the meteorologists are scratching their heads. They just can't figure it out, what could do this. And it's truly astounding that we live in a world where denial is so incredibly prevalent. And then you have I have to talk about him again because it really gets under my saddle. Is the people, for example, at Weather Channel. their willingness to lie, absolutely lie, and carry out this weather theater, trying to explain the completely unnatural as natural, and paint a picture that's not accurate or in any sense true or real or right. It's, for anybody who watches Weather Channel, it's quite obvious what their marching orders are. It's the same as it's been for quite a while now, to paint the picture of cold, cold, cold. The whole world's cold, and indeed part of it is. I mean, the parts of Canada and the eastern U.S. have had a lot of cold, one after another, but that's one part of the world, and it's such an incredibly isolated spot when one looks at the overall maps. But what's astounding is, the Weather Channel paid actors, and it's just their lack of moral compass is beyond belief. And they're like a lot of people in this equation. That's how we get into the mess we're in, because people do what they're told. It's just my job. It's just my job. I'm just following orders. That doesn't get it. It absolutely doesn't get it, and it's what's going to sink the ship. And people, whether in the military or whether Weather Channel meteorologists, anybody who's helping to facilitate these programs, helping to hide these programs, are all responsible. And whenever this incredible crime of geoengineering is brought into the light of day, every person who helped to facilitate this crime is responsible and should be tried in a court of law, quite literally. It's no different with any other crime. It's the same with this crime. So people who have convinced themselves they're just doing what they're told and it's all okay, it's not okay. So I hope they're thinking about that. And I think about a friend whose brother appears involved in these programs and unable to speak out. And I do have this sympathy for some, or probably many in these programs. They're afraid. They're afraid, and rightfully so. They shouldn't have gotten themselves into this position to begin with, perhaps, but now they feel threatened, and I think they are threatened. I just heard about a couple other military people from the actual mother of one who have lost their sons from situations that seem similar to the Pat Tillman story. And I don't know how many people know about Pat Tillman, but if you don't, you should look, because Pat Tillman was a true, honorable, virtuous human being that was completely disillusioned when he saw what was really going on in the military over in Afghanistan. And if you look at the data, you can't not conclude that they just simply killed him. They knew he was a person of notoriety. They did not want him shining the light on their criminal behavior, and they took him out and created a false ambush with U.S. troops and killed him. That simple. And I talked to the mother of another exceptional Marine that had a long list of accreditations and very high post and knew a lot. It seems they killed him the same way. And there's a lot of military personnel now that they're fighting back against this, fighting back against the system. They're great, honorable people, and we need them. But that's how desperate our fight is. We have generals being fired right now. I don't know what the latest number is. It's 2 dozen, 3 dozen, maybe higher. But generals are being fired right now because it seems they are not willing to go along with what is shaping up to be an assault against the U.S. population. That's how desperate our circumstances are. So in the case of the weather manipulation and geoengineering, this assault on California, which is really much of the food production for the country, California's on its knees already, and it's going to be driven to the absolute the grave pretty quick if they don't allow it to rain here, and it doesn't look like they're going to. So how does a population really effectively fight back against the tyranny when they can't eat? And this is weather warfare, plain and simple, weather warfare. And I hope people here in the state, I'm trying desperately to get people to focus on geoengineering, to drive the point home that no matter what they're focused on, we have people here focused on creating a separate state in Northern California and fighting for a lot of other things. But those things can't be considered priorities in comparison to geoengineering. They can't. Because if we don't stop geoengineering, it's game over. It's that simple. We've talked about it before, but I want to pound that point home for a lot of reasons. One, we won't have anything to eat. Two, our cognitive functioning will be so compromised that we won't be able to think our way out of any situation. And three, they could take us all out anytime they want. They change the mix in this spray, and we're done. That fast. And even without that, we're getting sicker by the day, all of us. So as they wreak this weather havoc, let me go over that again real quick. Same pattern, massive high-pressure dome in the west over the eastern Pacific and the west coast of the U.S., this causes the jet stream to take a huge dip into the eastern Pacific, where it picks up moisture, but then it goes straight north. This is unprecedented to see this pattern at all, let alone constantly. All the way up to Alaska, where that moisture is then nucleated, cooled down. And I just posted an article yesterday called Engineered Drought Catastrophe, Target California. I post maps on there that make this incredibly clear. They're NOAA maps. So they pump this up to the Arctic and then pump it straight down south. So California misses everything. California is just a stagnant pool of heat and drought. But they push this cold air down, create these cold air anomalies, a very shallow layer of cold air. I want to stress and talk to a number of airline passengers that fly frequently, and they see temperature rises of 20 degrees when they're 1,500 feet up off the deck. That means it's a very shallow layer of cold air that creates this illusion of Arctic everything. And it's not a natural layer. It's only isolated regions within this band of the jet stream. So they're keeping this locked into place, creates a lot of media, creates a lot of confusion, creates a lot of division. And we saw that this week with yet more of the big independent news agencies now insinuating that California's drought was just natural. These are supposedly independent news agencies that are on our side, that acknowledge geoengineering is real, but somehow they refuse to acknowledge the effects of geoengineering. I don't understand that. I really don't understand how they, what's pulling their chains or what. I don't know what's going on in certain camps right now. But the data's there. The weather's not natural. We're all under assault. Anybody who says otherwise is simply not looking at the truth, period. So we saw temperatures, Billings, Montana, a couple days ago, 55 degrees in rain. It wasn't Billings. It was some other location in Montana near the Canadian borders where we saw this. So it's 50-plus degrees and raining in Montana, while Texas is having an ice storm. Ice on the Gulf Coast in Texas while it's raining in Montana. How can anybody consider that normal? And they'll cool the temps off in Montana now. I think they're dropping 20, 30 degrees now already. These massive fluctuations, but the system is lurching harder and harder, back and forth. It's coming apart. And again, for too many reasons to even outline again, our health, the ability to grow food, the ability to have clean water, the ability to have a climate system that supports life, all the above. We have to stop geoengineering. So, first, Richard, I know you said that you guys are having normal temperatures there a lot, but I just looked, and I don't know, maybe this has changed since we talked, but I just looked, and the Weather Channel tries to paint normal. For example, they just showed Phoenix as if everything's quote-unquote normal there. But the temps there they show are 10 degrees plus above normal for the foreseeable future, and the nighttime lows are even more above normal. Are you seeing that in Sedona?
It has warmed up in the last, very gradually over the last 2 weeks, a degree or two a day. Nothing severe, but it's mild now, where we had terrible cold a little while ago. And now it's in the 60s. So it's very slightly above normal, but, and this is another thing that shows the difference in recipes that they use in different places. Because even though the weather is not very different from normal right now, the spraying is really intense. I mean, we have had a lot of days that were perfectly beautiful blue. I mean, old-style crystal blue sky. And I would see in the morning there would be these long trails, very thin trails coming out behind the planes all the way across the sky. And by about 11 in the morning or so, it would be like 80% apparent cloud cover, but no real clouds. It was all from the trails. And I would talk to some people about it, and most of them just totally couldn't believe it. But if this was only a weather changing recipe, then something would happen severely here. But this one seems to be strictly for poisoning, because we're not getting any radically different weather, but we're just getting, it's amazing people are still alive with the volume of metal that everybody's breathing now. It's just amazing.
Well, certainly, I think the toxification of the population or the sickening of the population is a part of this equation. But as we mentioned before, even what does not seem to be directly connected to, for example, the high pressure in California or the cold further east, everything is connected to the system. And if they're trying to enhance a HARP signal your direction and thus ionize the atmosphere, make it more conductive.
Yeah.
All is connected. All is connected.
I think they probably are doing that, and it also kind of tying into what you said. If this is supposed to be part of the high pressure over here, which at the moment it is kind of high pressure, then maybe that also is being maintained by the particular spraying they're doing here. I don't know.
Yeah, and those temps add up. For example, I know 60s is not that warm. Sedona right now, normal for this time of year is 54. So even if you're 10 degrees above normal, it can start to add up. And what we're seeing is nighttime lows rising twice as fast as daytime highs, and this would correlate with what the methane that we see entering the atmosphere. So anyway, the bottom line is right now we are entering a new phase of this equation where, I mean, they are literally breaking the back of California, and it's not an accident. And I cannot consider it just collateral damage for whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. I mean, there is no good in geoengineering. There is nothing benevolent, nothing for the common good. It's simply an all-out assault on life on Earth. Period. And it's imperative we get the message out to all those participating so that they understand what they're a part of.
I think that's a really good description, Dane, and I think it's taken a long time, even for the people that can kind of follow this now. It's taken a really long time for people to realize this is intentional destruction of the worldwide biosphere. It's not by accident, and it's not just a side effect of something else. It's a major target and a goal, and they're doing it. And to assume that they don't know what they're doing and that's by mistake would really make it harder for us to come up with any kind of good response. Well,
when you have, first of all, Russ, you've been getting pounded. I know you have trouble sleeping. You said two or 3 weeks. It's just been constant there, correct?
That's correct. We had ice storms here a few weeks ago. Had 5-day power outages where I live. We were on a generator for 5 days. During that ice storm, was the worst spraying I've ever experienced. They were spraying a type that causes people to get sick. I call it the swamp water type because it actually tastes like algae. It has a taste kind of like algae and mushrooms mixed together. And ever since then, the spraying has been, it's gone down a little bit overall, but, it's been the worst stretch that I've seen, ever overall. And even right now, we have a front that's moved into Maine and Pennsylvania and the whole Northeast. And as predicted, we got hit real hard several hours before this front hit us. And right now, we're getting wave after wave of a combination of nasty metals in the air. So, just like chocolate.
This is where it's important everybody think out of the box, and that not, geoengineering isn't just this or that. It's a lot of things. So, yes, they're making us sick. Yes, they're causing drought in California, probably decimating the food supply, part of that equation. But also, there's the power structure trying in a very destructive and counterproductive way to keep their own boat afloat a little longer. And part of that, again, even things happening in the central Pacific at very low latitudes are effective or a part, they're a component of what they're trying to do in the Arctic. So you see this massive dip in the jet, pump the moisture up over Alaska, cool it down, pump it through the U.S., cool the eastern U.S., but then it pumps over where Russ is, for example, and they're spraying it, they're nucleating it, they're not letting all of it fall, but they're migrating it. And they pump that up further toward the Arctic, where it appears they're in an absolutely desperate attempt, and again, a completely counterproductive effort, but to keep the little bit of ice that's left in the Arctic. And the more they try to do what they're doing, the more they hamper the overall equation. And this is, again, the definition of insanity. Same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And this is so imperative that people realize this is a complex equation, and we should explain it as such. And I'm finally, this is months overdue, but thankfully Russ has kept some records on what we already did on this. I'm going to get a sheet out in the next few days that gives some very straightforward suggestions for activists to do and to don't. Keep the equation simple when you discuss this issue. Certain things can be said in a very straightforward manner that are very clear, that don't muddy the equation, that don't create division, that don't create confusion. All of our weather is being hampered, period. all of us are being poisoned by these programs, period. And there are aspects of that we can say definitively. I'll list those. Also, for how activists approach this issue, this is important too. A lot of people who are trying to share this message, very sincere people, are trying to do it in a manner that's not as helpful as it could be. People have to look at this like going into court. You don't go into court dressed in your camping gear that you work in the trench with or something. You dress up a little bit. You look up in a manner that you would try to appeal to the judge. And we all have to be salesmen, period, in this issue. And I'm not trying to take away anybody's personal identity at all, but this is not, at this point, an equation that allows for personal expression so much as trying to get the word across in a way that people understand. So we should all look at this. When people go out in the street and they try to share flyers and share this data, pretend you're going in front of a judge. And how do you want to present yourself to that judge? And even though you can't judge a book by its cover, and this, everything I'm talking about shouldn't matter, but it does. Although the cover does not tell the story of the book, they do see the cover first. So we should all consider in this fight that we have to do it in a manner that's effective. And I want to outline this on a sheet because, quite simply, if people want to help this equation, that's what you do. When you're talking about this equation, you don't muddy it up with all sorts of dialogue about things that don't relate or things that will cause us to lose credibility. You have to stay on compass heading. You have to have a few key, strong talking points, and you don't deviate from that. You let people investigate on their own after that. But if you muddy the water with certain things, and we see a lot of people doing that as well, very, very questionable things that we really don't have anything solid to stand on data-wise with, and they're really unrelated subjects. Got to keep it clean. Got to keep it clean. So I'll try to get this sheet out finally. It's long overdue. I'll certainly let Russ and Richard look at it. And one more thing, and you guys, I want both your comments on this. We see a complete cutting off of information. It's astounding. I go back 5 years. You had CNN, World News, 24 hours a day. On one channel, you had national news on another, all the time. Then they dumped the world news. Then they stopped the national news down to only X amount of hours a day. You turn it on another time, not in their prime hours, you can get half hour of infomercial, literally. So they're just turning off the spigot of any information at all. Not that the information we get on these stations is worth a damn anyway. I mean, even this week, more dramas out of a hat, more absolute distractive nonsense while the house is burning to the ground. And Weather Channel, same thing, full of reality shows. And when they do show Weather Channel, when they do show quote-unquote weather, it's just a big, massive scripted theater to paint a certain picture with a bunch of paid, spineless, moralless, honorless actors to carry out a certain message. And it's appalling that they're shutting off the spigot of information completely, and people don't even seem to notice. Richard, your take on that?
I think excuse me, very accurate description, and I don't think that once you understand what the media really is, most of it, and that it's primarily owned by, I think now 5 corporations, it's not a surprise, let alone a shock, at all that they're going toward total overt nonsense on all of the so-called news channels, because their function is to do what their owners tell them to do, and that's all. They have no obligation to tell the truth. They have no interest in telling the truth any more than actors care what part they're playing. And this is what they do. So we shouldn't expect anything else from the so-called news media, because that's their job, and they're doing it.
That was really well said. You can continue, but that was really well said. They don't care any more than actors care what part they're playing. It's exactly the way it is.
As long as they're well paid to do the role, then their only concern is how well they do it. And I think that the teleprompters are telling them facial expressions, they're telling them tone of voice. And what's really interesting is that I just this morning had a conversation with a very relatively well-informed friend, member of the public, and he thinks that he's very independent thinking, but the things that he's fallen for in the media are not the ones that are overtly said, that are the ones that are implied. And they're implied not only by the news media, but by sitcoms and all kinds of entertainment TV, which shows brainless, totally disempowered, fearful people being the normal members of the public who need to be taken care of and cannot think or do anything for themselves. And nobody's explaining that you have to be like this. They're showing you. And if you absorb it sitting in front of that thing that's called television, then gradually, no matter what you consciously think, you start to become that. And I think that's a huge danger that people don't see.
They don't. It's been brought on so slowly. And Russ, you're, with this complete shutting off of information, and the information we do get is, as Richard said, it's just put out by actors who are paid for a certain role, and they don't care what that role is. What's your take on that, Russ?
I worked for a political party years ago, and I thought the world was a really beautiful, wonderful place, and of course nature is, but I actually began to see media lie, and it really confused me at first because we would have events where we'd have 5,000 people show up for a God and Country rally, and media would say there was 500, and then there would be an anti-gun rally where there'd be 250 people, and suddenly media would say there's 2,500 people. And we saw this every single time. They never told the truth, and every time they lied about the numbers dramatically, and they always skewed them in the direction of the agenda of disarming the public, disinforming the public, and keeping people apathetic. And I saw this firsthand because we had people on the ground that actually knew the numbers of people that were at these events. And so we had firsthand information about how they would lie. So most of the people listening to the show probably understand this. But for people who are new and really think the media can't be controlled, the bottom line is these corporations understand human behavior more than people understand themselves. And they understand the fundamental principle that everything you do is governed by what you believe. Therefore, if you want to control what people do, and that's what it's all about control. You want to control what people do, you have to control what they believe. Therefore, you have to control the flow of information. I encourage people to go look online for Charles Jaco. There's a broadcast that was exposed that was from the Persian Gulf years ago, 1990 Persian Gulf War. This was exposed by Alex Jones, and also there's YouTube videos on there where they said they were in the Persian Gulf and they had this big fear-mongering presentation. Turns out the camera turns and you can see they're actually in a studio, and the whole thing was made up. And it makes you wonder how often this has been done when the footage wasn't leaked. I think it's much more often than we realize.
Well, I think there's so much that is so completely different than what we've grown to understand and accept. I mean, where would we start? We have the glaring example of 9/11. We have the Gulf of Tonkin incident that started Vietnam. The list is almost endless. And so, people need to really stand back, dump their filters, and clear their vision, because the world is nothing like what we've been told in so many ways. And now I see on almost any channel, it doesn't matter if it's a movie, if it's news, if you almost never see a clear sky. Almost never. It's just this sort of bleached out looking white color, and people don't seem to notice much, and as if the planet has completely altered itself to some other form. Well, it has. It's been altered, but people absolutely have to clean the slate, start over, and start looking at data anew. Now, hey, Russ, if you can give the call-in number.
Yeah, you got it. For those who'd like to call in and ask a question, please feel free to call at 718-717-8296. It's 718-717-8296. Dane, I have something interesting for you.
Yes.
I talk to a lot of people throughout the week. I do tech support. I talk to activists around the country, sometimes people in other countries. I talked to somebody I was doing tech support with this week. Interesting thing, she knew nothing about geoengineering, and she was telling me about how the strangest thing was happening in her town. They couldn't melt the ice with the salt. The ice would not melt on the roads. She said they've never seen anything like it in their area in history. I don't know, interesting Interesting. But she went on and on about how she's lived there all her life, never seen anything like it. They were making a big deal. They can't melt the ice this year for some reason.
If there's anything in the media, we would love to have that, and it doesn't surprise me because we've talked about this before in the show that I had a half a dozen people who were trying to take snow samples, but they couldn't get this stuff to melt, even in room temperatures inside. And when it finally did, much of it just gassed back into the air. It's exactly what we'd expect with artificially nucleated ice. And so the degree to which they're doing this, it's so visible on the radar. You see what happened in Texas. It was incredibly obvious if anybody looked at the radar and you don't even need a clue about meteorology. You can just look at that and try to use your sense of reason and not listen to the Weather Channel idiots lying their backsides off about why this is happening. Moisture was coming off the Gulf of Mexico, and it just miraculously it goes through a band of then frozen precipitation, and then it turns to quote-unquote snow. How can moisture coming off the Gulf just alter itself like that, and why is there always a band of frozen precipitation between this warmer subtropical air and where it suddenly miraculously snows? Again, we've been over this. When this nucleated materials, that zone between the actual precipitation and when it's finally freezing up in the air and turning to these big cotton candy flakes, it hits the ground before it sets up, and it sets up into ice at temperatures above freezing. It starts to cool down a layer at the surface, so you have a very shallow layer of cold air so that, the thermometer shows cold temps. Eventually it does, but it's a very shallow layer. And this nucleating material, we're still trying to figure out everything that's in it. I have another lab test in now, but God knows what they're using at this point. And that's one of the primary methods that they're, quote-unquote, cooling things down. But it's not, in any sense, a normal historical cold that has depth to it. It's just a thin layer at the surface. And we know this from the airline passenger observations of the temperatures. As soon as they get up off the deck, temperature goes up 20 degrees. And so it doesn't surprise me, Russ, and I hope if there's some media about that, we need to get that out there as well. But isn't it astounding that with all this going on, that media is so, meteorologists, scientists, the sort of complete blindness to all this, that they just toe the line until the government puts out something or allows them to put something in their government-owned or global elite-owned publication, then it doesn't exist. It's not reality. It doesn't matter how glaring it is. The elephant in the room just dances on without anybody even acknowledging it. So, and this is a headline from a couple days ago. It's never mentioned on Weather Channel and so forth, but this is from Australia. Australia's bushfires have now spread so wide it's creating its own weather system, including lightning storms. Temperatures top 46 C in Australia near Adelaide. That's over 120, 100 bushfires, blah, blah, blah. Again, Southern Hemisphere, we have a blaze from South America, Australia, Tasmania. Just a lot of things going on in the world that people are not aware of. We have now, the Ukraine situation, just to go into another gear here, geopolitical. In Ukraine, I don't know how many people are watching that, but the Western powers are doing everything they can to cause that country to go into utter and total chaos. That's what the Western powers are best at. They create division, they sit in provocateurs, and they start to create political unrest. It's happening in Ukraine. They've destabilized most of the Middle East already. Same thing in Egypt, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. And these crimes are so clearly obvious of who's behind it and what they're doing, and our media doesn't cover any of it. It's so incredibly untruthful what we see in our media that you can't begin to plug it into reality. So I hope people, again, look for alternative news. RT News, I encourage people to look at RT. I'm not saying they're perfect, but it's the best news out there by far. Abby Martin, her show, Breaking the Set, covers some very hard-hitting news. Look elsewhere. Don't watch CNN, Fox, MSNBC. It's all just different spectrums of total garbage of lies and omission. So anyway, and guys, I'm sure, I don't know how much you're watching any of the mainstream media. Russ, Richard, have you guys seen, have you made it a point to or had the chance to watch any mainstream media presentation lately?
No, I don't. I really try to never see television as much as possible.
I understand the sentiment, but I make myself watch it because I want to understand what the sheeple are being fed, and it helps me to have a clearer perspective of why they think the way they do. But Russ, have you seen any mainstream media of late?
Yeah, I do watch it on a regular basis because I read between the lines.
Yes.
Yeah, being involved in the political party and gaining, that gave me a great education about how media really works. And what you do, and Richard brought this up earlier about implied information, is the most effective lies are when they don't tell you the lies straight out. What they do is they give you information and let you draw a conclusion, so you feel like it's really good information because you drew a conclusion. What people don't understand is the story was designed to make you draw that conclusion, making you think you came to it yourself. It's very clever. They're very good at what they do. And so, yes, I do watch it because it actually gives me information about what they're feeding the people. And if you know how to read between the lines, you can see what they're really saying. You can see what they're planning on doing.
One of the big things that they're presenting there is the archetype of what a man or a woman or a child should be like, personality-wise, intelligence level, and activities that they like. And that's very effective, and they don't have to explain that at all. They just show the people.
Yeah. You see that in the sitcoms. I mean, you see people, that's one thing I see in sitcoms and shows here and there. I don't watch too much of these shows, but I do watch a little bit to see what's going on. And everything is fear-based. Everything teaches you to follow what everybody else does. And if you don't, you will be rejected by your friends. You will be rejected by people who are supposedly your friends. And that's the message they keep promoting over and over and over again. So you will be isolated and alone if you don't follow the crowd. That's the message I see over and over.
That's right. And not only that, but if you ever really question what the authorities tell you out of their benevolence, then not only are you being suicidal, but you're hurting everybody else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing thing is another angle is they try to demonize people who are different. Like if you come out with information and you say, hey, we're being sprayed, you're like, oh, you're the bad guy because you're bringing out this information that causes people to have stress.
Well, what do we see with examples? Again, to highlight what you guys are stating, how the messengers are the ones that are killed, quite literally in many cases. So we have, when Bradley Manning brings out the information he brought out in one of those films, was astounding. They aired it on RT TV to their credit. I don't know how many have seen this film, but you can find it online, I'm sure. It showed an Apache helicopter circling at a distance from about 12 men on a street corner. 2 were Reuters journalists, the rest were civilians, and they mowed them down in cold blood. They had the audio of the Apache chopper pilot communicating with his command post, the commander saying, light him up, like it was some kind of video game. And then you hear the bap, bap, bap from the machine guns and just blowing these guys to bits for no reason at all. And then you have a van with a family, 2 children, pulling up a minute or 2 later and seeing these bodies everywhere, and they stop to try to assist. And what happens then? They shoot the van. They kill the family. Horrible abdomen wound in a little girl that was saved, I think, with great deformity. And one of the soldiers who helped lift that little girl out of the van has since gone on the record to express his absolute outrage at this situation. To his credit, I salute this soldier, that this could happen. And what does our military do to cover it up? They put Bradley Manning in prison, correct? Same thing they try to do to anybody who would dare tell the truth against the empire. And so people need to rise up and understand the ship is going down. It's going down right now. I hope people within the military, I hope the NSA people listening, I hope everybody that's a part of this insanity understands that they are going down with the ship, that they can choose to do the right thing now while they still have the choice, and perhaps change the overall outcome of this equation, or they can go down with a total lack of honor, morality, any sense of benevolence. So Anyway, I encourage people to look beyond, to back up what you said, Russ, and how the mainstream media works. Anybody who attempts to tell the truth is demonized, isolated, separated, if not outright locked up and killed.
Yeah,
Correct?
a serious situation.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And I mean, information control has been around as long as governments have been around. We live in an age where information control is more able to be facilitated than ever before in history because of technology. You can have disinformation around the globe in seconds, literally. You can have scripts written. You can have the information delivered. And, this isn't new. They've been setting up this system for a long time. And people have a hard time believing it sometimes because it's so sophisticated. But it's sophisticated because they're experts at this. They've been experts at this. And it's a great way to make money. You make billions and billions of dollars by controlling information. And they understand the relationship between the control of information and the cash flow that they generate and the power that they congregate from the control of information. And sometimes the lies are so blatant in front of your face, you tell somebody about it, and the person you're talking to has a hard time believing it because it's so in their face, and say, well, I would know about it. And, well, you do know about it because I'm telling you about it. And they're like, well, I don't know, I'd hear it from another source or some news source, and it's like you have alternative media all over telling you about it. It's just a matter of making the decision to become educated and put the pieces together and understand it. Never has it been so easy to find the truth, but yet never have we been so deceived.
Deceived to a point where, to kind of dovetail on what you just said, Russ, I got word from somebody this morning that just finally got their 82-year-old dad to consider that this might be happening in our sky, but he says he won't really be convinced until mainstream media covers it. And that's the kind of conditioning that's prevalent in our society that is hard to break, but it's beginning to break down. I just, somebody that sat the fence in the same manner up until yesterday, the article I just put out, they took that article because now they're being droughted out in California. Now it's hurting them, and now they believe it. Now they get it. So this person who's sat the fence historically took that article and forwarded it to 100 of their associates. They finally got off the fence, got off their backside, and joined the fight, if you will. So I would argue that the degree to which we've been led to believe the world is a certain way that's quite different than what it is hard to comprehend. And I think there's events that we consider to be absolute historical fact that I'm not sure if it is. And I question, certainly we have glaring events like 9/11 that cannot rationally be seen any other way than those buildings were brought down. They were brought down with controlled demolitions. I don't buy the Judy Wood space weapon thing. There's just too much evidence to the contrary. I've researched that issue in depth. But the bottom line is they were brought down, period. The official story is absolute garbage, period. And it's so glaring that a blind man could see it, period. But people don't. How many people don't? How many people still think Saddam had weapons of mass destruction? People have to break their paradigm. They have to break their paradigm and shake it off. And again, one thing I tried this week, it just happened a couple days ago where someone called me and said, hey, I'm trying to help you with your cause, but you need to do this and this and this and this. Man, I'm tired of hearing that. I'm so tired of hearing that. You guys probably hear it too, but my response to them was, this isn't my cause. It's our cause. It's our cause. And I hope more people understand that. And I'm immensely grateful for all those who have helped the cause, period. Immensely grateful. I don't take it for granted. But for those that sit on the bench and yell instructions while they do nothing, had enough of that. Absolutely had my fill. So anyway, but for those that are actually digging in, grabbing hold, and starting to pull, you have my most sincere respect and regard. And it's all of us pulling together that matters, right? I mean, Russ, everything you've done, you have how many people following you right now that, and who knows what they're doing in their individual lives, with the instructions that you help to get out every week. Richard, your articles are starting to reach who knows how many now. So everybody has to look at it in these terms, that every move we make matters.
Yeah, the power people have, people should not feel powerless at all. And even if you're talking to someone who sounds very opposed to what you're saying, usually that's just a defense mechanism because they're being affected inwardly. So never underestimate the power of your words when you're telling the truth to somebody. Don't be discouraged by how they react to you. Just put the truth out there and let the seeds grow.
Yeah. Excellent comment. I totally agree with that.
And this, again, the mathematical equation, and I hope people do this at home, actually. Don't just listen to me and think, well, geez, it sounds like he's wrong, but maybe he's right. I hope people actually pull their calculator out and go through this equation. It only takes a minute. But I've used it a lot, but just to drive this point home. You tell 2 people at the beginning of the month, effectively. Give them data, wake them up, send them on their way, and have them tell at least 2 the next day. And those 2 more the following day. But if you take that number, 1 at the beginning of 30 days, and you double that 1 every day for 30 days, it's 5.5 million. And at face value, people absolutely deny that math. They think it couldn't be more than 200 or 300. It's 5.5 million. People need to think in those terms. And go home and do the math and see how completely shocked you are at that final sum. So, again, I think we're closer to critical mass than we realize. And I'm hearing from people that are quite high in the food chain that knew and have been watching this equation that apparently have not spoken out yet. But I think the undercurrent of awareness is much bigger than we realize and growing exponentially quickly. But it's important that we keep our stride right now. And too many people think, well, the ball's rolling, somebody's taking care of it, so I'll just, sit in the bleacher here and watch what happens. Can't do that. We have to keep our stride. You see, so many races are lost at that last stretch before the finish line when someone loses their kick, when they back off a bit and they lose. And we can't afford to have that happen here. We cannot afford to lose our kick. Every day matters. Every move we make every day matters. So it's imperative for all those listening and all those who are trying to decide what to do, figure out an objective move you can make that day. How can you move the ball forward that day? Who haven't you talked to? Who haven't you contacted? What group haven't you reached out to? Figure it out that day, every day. Make it count. Move the ball forward that day. And again, if we all do this, it will matter because we're closer to critical mass than we realize.
What you're saying is so powerful, Dane. People, we got over 15,000 people in our Facebook group now, almost 16,000 people. And if everybody just contacted one person a day, the impact would be absolutely amazing. You have to understand, even if people need to understand this, and we need to encourage, I'm not talking about us, we do this all the time, but everybody who's listening, just encourage people to take 2 minutes a day even. Send an email once a day to somebody. If everybody did that 2 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, the impact is incredible, but you have to do it. You have to actually do something. And I'm going to put a link in the chat room right now about a list of things that you can do to be involved. Very easy things that you can do in 5 minutes. And plus, I will mention real quickly the phone number. If you want to call in, we do have a few minutes left. I guess we'll take a few calls here. We have 718. The phone number is 718-717-8296. So please feel free to call in and ask a question in the last 10 minutes that we have here.
And Richard, I know you've seen this sort of insanity. Oh, Russ, everything good?
Yeah, we're okay. We got somebody on the line here making some noise. So
okay.
Hang in there, caller. We'll be right with you.
Well, we got a caller now. Let's go ahead and grab that now because we're running out of time.
Okay. Yeah, caller, you were just beeping your phone. How are you doing today?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Good.
Who are you speaking with?
Yeah, this is Elizabeth from New Jersey.
Hi, Elizabeth. How are you?
Okay, how you doing?
Good, thanks. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, you too. I just wanted to say that we have to keep on our state representatives, and Russ has a letter on his site that we can use as samples, which makes it very easy for all of us to send out. Excuse me, I'm sorry. We've been very sick here with upper respiratory due to all this. But anyway, if you could please send that, Russ, that would be so great for people to just go ahead and try and contact their state representatives. It's so important to keep. It's very important to keep on top of them.
Yeah, we've got, I've just put the link in the chat room for people who are on the chat at the Global Skywatch website. I think you have them at GeoEngineering Watch too. Dane, you have sample letters for representatives?
We do. In fact, Lisa Thomas, Elizabeth, I don't think you haven't connected with Lisa Thomas yet, have you?
Yes,
You
I
did.
have.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. Okay. I'm looking at too much information. You probably told me that and I forgot, but I'm glad you guys connected. Lisa's done a real good draft, and we do need to post that. I'll try to get that done as well. It is important to hammer those representatives, and at the same time, I believe just as important, if not more, to raise awareness at the grassroots level so that those politicians in their posts cannot ignore the furious natives with their pitchforks and torches, because otherwise they will.
Right.
Until the population is absolutely standing in the streets, unwilling to yield. That's what will bring this to light. And again, until those military families whose sons and daughters and fathers and mothers are perhaps part of these programs, until those families realize what their family member is engaged in and force that family member to consider what they're doing, that this is not, it's not okay to do your job when your job is literally killing life on Earth. It's not okay. And you don't have the latitude to go along because you were ordered. You don't have that latitude. So we must raise awareness to that point where those participating in the system refuse. We must reach that point soon. So all avenues are important. As Elizabeth said, hammering the reps, because it is starting to affect them. It is. In fact, a congressman here in California that has been hit so hard with people demanding to know what's going on, he's now looking and now coming around. So that does matter. It certainly does. But also to continue to raise the Army. We can't engage in this fight without an army, if you will. And so it's imperative we continue to rally the Army by waking them up, by letting them know the ship is going down and we need all hands on deck.
And also, too, I would like to add, every time we go to the mall or the store, shopping centers, we send out those little biz cards that have the Global Skywatch and GeoEngineeringWatch.org. What's happening with our weather? Why is it so weird? It's 1 minute it's 50 degrees and it's freezing 9 degrees. I mean, it is snowing here today in New Jersey. It's ridiculous. We've had snow nonstop. We had snow 3 days ago. It was 9 degrees. 2 weeks ago, it was 50 degrees, and then it's back down to 9 degrees 3 days later. It's ridiculous.
Well, these are the fluctuations, though, that I'm hammering the point. This is indicative of just how much the system is coming apart. It's being forced. It's being forced by the geoengineers, and the system is forcing back now. And this tug-of-war will be at the expense of life on Earth if it continues. So I'm glad you're noticing, and that... if there's a silver lining in what's happening all around us, this cataclysm that's unfolding everywhere, these fluctuations in temperatures and the cataclysmic drought in California, it is waking people up. We're very late in the game. We're very far into the curve. But it's not over till it's over. And at this point, it's all of us pulling together that matters. And I know you've done a lot of things in New Jersey, and grateful for everything you've done, Elizabeth. Very grateful.
Sure. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, too. I just feel like I need to tell everybody they're slow killing us, and you have nothing to lose by raising awareness and getting out there and making people aware, educating them. There's people that don't know. They really do not know this is going on.
There's a tremendous amount of those people, amazingly, and we do need to reach them. And as you said, when you said nothing to lose, that's something everybody should consider, and that is an absolute fact. We're standing on the end of the plank. There's nowhere else to go. We can turn, stand, and fight now, raise awareness now, or off the plank. That's how simple it is. So anyway, I hope people forget about ridicule or whatever resistance they may get from family and friends. It's time to stand up now. It's past time.
And I would like to thank all of you, too, very much for literally helping us and support and just raising the awareness and waking us all up, and everything that you do. I know the work, and I know the amount of frustration there is involved with trying to get your word out, and that's why it makes me just more determined to help fight, because I feel it needs to get it on the media. It needs to go out there. Somehow, some way, it needs to go out there, and I think it will. I really have a very strong feeling. I've seen a lot in the last few months. So I really think we've got a good team, and I think we could just continue and hope and pray for the best and keep plugging along.
Thank you for your thoughts, Elizabeth, and thank you for all your help.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I really appreciate that. Let's take our next caller. We have a caller with a number that ends in 14. You're on right now. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. This is Billy Hayes.
Hi, Billy. How you
Billy.
doing?
I don't know where to start, but it's almost too late. But since we're talking about chemical aerosol spraying and so forth and what's going on in this world, I probably got more expertise in it than anybody left alive right now, since I was on majority of the beginning of it at Eglin Air Force Base.
Anything if there's particularly specific data that you can share, Billy, that can draft it for me, you can certainly reach me through GeoWatch or you could reach Russ or, anything that could be pinned in concise form that you want to share, we definitely want to look at it. And the problem, the more details and corroborating data we can have to help, I don't doubt you at all, but to help silence the deniers, if you will, that, all that is helpful to us. So, anything you want to share in that regard, we're all ears. I mean, anything you can pin and share. I know we don't have time now, but everybody, especially with a history like you apparently have, I mean, we need to know.
Yeah, I can stipulate this fact that I started working with aerosol spraying back on Eglin Air Force Base back in the 1962. Which is at the time they were developing the system for Agent Orange, for spraying Agent Orange. Of course, that was called low-level aerosol spraying. The development of it during that period of time took it to both low and high altitude because they were trying to figure out how to utilize this Agent Orange junk back then. And in the process, the people who lived on Eglin Air Force Base and around Eglin Air Force Base, such as Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Niceville, Valparaiso, those cities down there, and the schools were basically intertwined with the spraying, this experimental stuff at that time. I've lost a lot of classmates. A lot of my classmates have passed away due to their engagement with this atmospheric spraying back in those days, and directly related to that spraying. Agent Orange turned out to be no more than the pretense of what became Morgellons.
If you have something very valuable to share, I think, Billy, and if you can reach out to, just send a message to GeoWatch or get it to Russ, either one. I would like to talk to you off the air and figure out how we can get something pinned for an article to share what you have to share. It's important, and please reach out to us there. And
well, you got my number there, right? You got my number, right?
Well, Russ has it. Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry. I'll reach out to you. I forgot about that.
I would love to talk to you as well. If you wouldn't mind, just I do see your number.
I'll send my afterwards, okay? Yeah.
Yeah, if you could, it would probably be best if you emailed me at russ@globalskywatch.com.
I'm not capable of that now.
Oh, you're not? Okay. So you want me just to call you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Billy, we'll do. I appreciate your courage in calling in, and I think we'd all like to connect with you and try to get this down in black and white. And I salute your courage. I salute your service, and I'll look forward to connecting too. Russ and I both.
Just before you call me, go ahead and look me up. Google my name up. Billy Hayes. Just put after H-A-R-P. H-A-A-R-P. Harp. You'll find me.
You got it, Billy.
Good. I got your number.
Okay, here it comes, guys.
All right, thank
Good
you. Thank you, everybody. Hey, we're here every week, every Saturday afternoon, 12:50 time, Eastern time.